Hi, my name is Chris Trowbridge, and I'm a co-founder of ECO Circular Sustainable Supply Chain. I'm truly honoured to be here to present to you all today on behalf of ECO CSSC. So who is ECO CSSC? Well, firstly, there's myself, Chris Trowbridge, professional supply chain leader with substantive experience across the resources, industrial and defence sectors that has provided strategic direction to optimise and transform supply chain at a corporate governance and an operational level. My business partner is Kim Horwood, an environmental scientist. Kim is a senior environmental excellence specialist with a deep-seated passion to drive circular economy that sees businesses profit and the environment prosper. Kim has extensive international experience working in government policy and regulation and also industry sectors. ECO CSSC is an independent environmental and supply chain advisory group that focuses on helping its clients build circular and sustainable supply chains. And our approach is to focus on transitioning and building greener to green supply chains for our clients through our joint subject matter operational execution experience. Both Kim and I come from an operational background, so we understand the challenges to greening the supply chain within an operational environment. We'll cover more of that in detail later. So the benefits of greening the supply chain. Greening the supply chain can provide many benefits to a business and a company. This includes supporting the journey to circularity, making a positive impact to sustainability of a business or company, and also to help optimize the supply chain. As you can see here, it reduces the environmental impact of waste to go into landfill. It provides a better understanding of water stewardship within the operating model. Supports the regeneration of natural capital, something that really isn't widely discussed in much detail. Will help reduce the scope 1, 2, 3 emissions within the operational supply chain. Help companies meet or exceed their ESG commitments. Enhance the customer experience and satisfaction, which is another area that's underrated. Reduce the cost to operate, reduce the life cycle cost, increase morale and retention of staff and employees because people are making decisions about how green the business is or the ESG commitments of the companies they work for. And last but not least, increase shareholder value. So surely with all these benefits, everybody would green their operational supply chains, wouldn't they? So what's stopping this from happening right now? I think the best way to do is take a look at the problem statements, and this may answer some of those questions for us. The problem statement, greening the supply chain and circularity, the words on the screen are realistically just the key takeaways from the passage I'm about to read you. And this was an article written by myself and Winton Evis from Eco Profit. And this is how to unlock the supply chain to deliver on sustainability. In the context of ESG, we're seeing and hearing an ever-increasing reference to the words circularity and sustainability. With this has come a more frequent reference to the value chain, and the value chain being all the primary and secondary activities from material product or service supply through to the end of use, what we all call the life cycle. A critical part of the value chain is the supply chain and its analysis. Today, we're bombarded with online propositions purporting to show us how to measure performance, what standards we should apply, which is the best platform reporting, etc. The list goes on. People working in supply chain management are invariably confused as to what products programs are good, bad, or indifferent. With this amount of information, it's no wonder businesses and companies are not progressing their ESG transition pathways with the momentum they and their shareholders expect. The overload of information, opinion, and expectation is resulting in conflicting levels of complexity, resulting in procrastination and paralysis. The outcome is not only limited to unnecessary delay in a call to action on climate change, it is also a delay to unlocking the supply chain towards greater efficiency, better pricing, more supply security, and last but not least, enhanced sustainable environmental performance. So how do we make the step change to unlock the supply chain, to move from inaction to action? Easy. Don't accept the supply chain as complex. You can make it simple if you understand the process and put a rush-loaded plan in place. And that means just to make sure you do plan before you try to execute. No matter the magnitude of your ESG transition pathway, you can meet and even exceed expectations right now. So the first step in unlocking the supply chain is to understand it. This includes the people, systems, processes, and environment that underpin the operational supply chain. And let's not forget, everybody in every industry has a supply chain of some description. Every product, service, or material that passes through the supply chain starts with inputs. There's always a need, which are then converted into subsequent products, services, and materials, i.e. the outputs. Invariably, these also generate other outputs, or what we call byproducts, such as emissions, waste, pollution, water consumption, etc. You get the message. Accordingly, understand the supply chain is one of the best mechanisms to monitor, measure, and report on your ESG transition pathway, and to be able to overlay the strategic metrics at an operational, tactical level to get the results you expected. The key enabler to get to this point is people. Again, an obvious assumption. So let's rephrase it. It's the right people with the knowledge, skills, experience, and time to assist and support businesses and companies on this journey versus generic service offerings, software packages, business models that may seem to deliver value for money and meet expectations. But again, the key word being generic, and these will not understand the idiosyncrasies of your business, your industry, or even your geographical location for that fact. So let's unlock this a little bit further now and understand what the problem is. How do you transition to a green supply chain and a circular economy? So we've considered the benefits of a greener supply chain. We've discussed some of those challenges. And we'll now look at how you can commence the transition pathway. But before we go any further, there needs to be a why or what. And what I mean by this is a performance target that you're looking to achieve. This may vary depending on your location, industry, shareholder expectation, and potentially many other variables. However, no matter what your performance target metric is, it must be captured somewhere, either your ESG framework or your sustainability reporting requirements. So how do you start down the transition pathway? We always start with educate, cross-functional process of mutual understanding. To commence the journey to circularity and sustainability, there has to be a mutual process of education from top down and bottom up. As we know, a journey forced on an individual is not sustainable. Therefore, to transition to a greener supply chain, all views and opinions must be heard. It's understood that there will be challenges along the way, and that's why a management of change process and communication plan should always be considered when going through this process. You need to facilitate in-depth insights into your supply chain, the challenges and barriers in achieving your expected outcomes, and or current and emerging issues you're trying to address. You need to set a baseline, therefore baseline assessment is required, based on data and data alone. This removes subjectivity and emotion from where you are to where you want to transition to. You need to unpack and analyze the issues that are stopping your transition pathway so you have the right insights, strategies, and we are calling this scope at the minute, systems of thinking in addressing these matters for circularity and sustainability in your supply chain. We next move on to consult, which is engagement across all stakeholders in the process. Once you have consensus and ultimately buy-in from stakeholders, and when I talk about stakeholders, I really mean the leaders that will engage and support with their teams and gain traction and momentum on this journey. With these clear insights and the scope, referred to as strategy above, the scope definition, your team can start to unlock the supply chain to identify where the opportunities in strategy, capability, process, governance are to close the gap to achieve your ESG commitments and those to circularity and sustainability. But you need to understand what you want and what you're going to measure, so the team can fully understand the outputs versus the inputs within the supply chain, collect the data, analyze it to identify improvement gaps, ensuring full stakeholder analysis approach is applied. Again, to the point, a forced journey will never be sustainable. And we move then to operate. Embed strategic and tactical transition pathway. With the team engaged and a clear understanding of your baseline, next is to ensure that there is transparency of expectation. Mistakes and errors will be made, so use these as learning opportunities to encourage improvement. Negative response to errors, etc., will only drive bad behaviours and poor reporting underground, and you'll never get a true understanding of your transition pathway and how well it's performing. With a data-based decision-making cycle established, you should review your strategies at corporate level and a tactical level approach for operational application, ensuring the value chain partners, both upstream and downstream, have been engaged in your business and company, which is where the supplier engagement model now needs to be considered, as there is a crossover as to what is within your sphere of influence and what is not. You need to develop a transition pathway that reflects the dimension and magnitude of your agreed journey in achievable timelines with all stakeholders, internal and external. Your transition pathway needs to be have defined measurable performance targets, whether KPIs or metrics, that can and are measured, monitored and reported, and that are aligned to the corporate strategy and the operational performance. Encourage open reporting, and where performance is not meeting expectation, never alter the target during the reporting period. Adjust the approach to bring the performance criteria back into the set level of tolerance afforded to it when you've set your targets. So it sounds simple, right? So what are the keys to transitioning to a circular supply chain? The right people to help facilitate the journey are key. Too many people have full-time jobs, and therefore the company may not necessarily have the skills, experience or time to execute this transition to a greener supply chain and circularity. Businesses and companies truly want to transition and want to have congruence with their words and actions that they're purporting out to the public. Leadership is key, as from the top down and bottom up approach. Leaderships need to demonstrate their commitment to the transition to a green and circular supply chain. Understand where the supply chain stops and the value chain starts. This is critical to understand the difference between the supply chain and the value chain. The supply chain being the extraction of those raw materials from the point of requirement through the process to the customer, and then the value chain, as we said at the beginning, the primary and secondary activities that sit around that product, service or material. Know what you want to change and how to measure it. The key thing there being, if you can't measure it, you can't change it. So therefore, make sure the two things are aligned. Have a baseline to start from and a clear target to meet. Again, it just sends a clear message and people know what needs to be achieved in what time frame. Put in place achievable performance criteria. The criteria needs to be aligned to what you're trying to change or what you're trying to achieve. If there's a misalignment to the performance criteria and activity, it will never be achieved, and therefore potentially people will become disenfranchised in the process. Again, a key one for me, never change the target, only the approach to achieve the outcome. Once you've set a target, it should have been a considered approach, and therefore it must be maintained. Yes, you can have a target that goes out to 2050, but it needs to be achievable timeframes within that period to be able to achieve the outcome. Always support your people in the transition pathway. People are the most important part of our business. They're the first touch point with our customers, and they are the ones that make a difference operationally. So realistically, make sure your people are assisted, supported and heard along the journey. From there, all I can say is good luck with you all on your transition to a greener and circular supply chain. And with that, I'll just touch on more about eco, circular, sustainable supply chains. We support primary, secondary and tertiary industries. And the key thing is all industries have a supply chain function. Now, the supply chain function in itself doesn't necessarily generate waste, but the products and services that pass through the supply chain or are determined by a supply chain do generate waste, emissions, utilize water, potentially impact biodiversity either directly or indirectly. And this is where the experience and knowledge of our environmental and supply chain people comes to aid our clients. We help our clients through unlocking the supply chain. We help them understand the maturity on the journey to circularity and sustainability. We use a lot of industry best practice tools, and we are aligned to some of the best international associations and foundations on sustainability and circularity. We help companies develop their strategies, but taking that strategy down from a corporate level to a tactical level, which is focused around sustainability and circularity. We develop the systems, processes and metrics to monitor and report on performance as a strategic and a tactical operational level. So therefore, performance can be monitored. And also we link this back to compliance reporting. We do facilitate audits of waste facilities and third-party supply chain facilities for auditing and assurances purposes. And we provide advisory services to ensure that any new projects that are occurring are aligned to a customer's ESG framework, and also tender submissions are aligned. We do engage in supplier engagement and education so they can understand how to understand waste, circularity, carbon. And we also like to consider the standardized reporting, because a business can have multiple suppliers of one category, let's say transport, for example, but each supplier will have a different reporting standard. So we look to standardized reporting in contracts and in contracts across those categories for ease of the contracting people, the operational people, and again back to the reporting requirements. And we like to get down at the grassroots of developing supply chains. So the supply chain is built from the ground up with systems of thinking that all constantly considers sustainability, circularity within the supply chain. So that's me. I thank you for your patience and time. It's been a pleasure to present to you today. There may be an opportunity for questions if Dr. Goswami has managed to dial me in. If not, if you do have any questions, please reach out to myself, Chris at ecocsc.com, or Kim. Both of us monitor our websites and our email addresses, or just visit our website at www.ecocsc.com. And please reach out, even if you want some more information or more insights into what we actually do. Thank you all for your time today.